Hello and welcome back to my channel. Yes, today is Wednesday. That can mean only one thing. It's Whisky Wednesday. But let's put a strike through that. It's actually Bourbon Wednesday. And the reason it's Bourbon Wednesday is because I thought, hey, there's something special going on in the States. We've got a new president coming into the seat of power. And wouldn't it be relevant if we just tried something American? And there is nothing more American than a glass of bourbon. And the bourbon that we'll be using has quite a lot of historical relevance, so I thought, hey, let's give it a go, let's try it. And as usual, any comments, suggestions, if you have tried this, just get into the conversation below, and it'll be fun to hear your thoughts. Now let's kick off. To give you a quick pub quiz foundation on bourbon needs to be made from 51% corn. It needs to be matured in a new white oak cask that has either been charred or heat treated. And just for a bonus points, how many gallons in a bourbon cask? 40. There you go, you've got bonus points. In that pub quiz you will come across as a bit of an alcoholic, I'm sure, but as long as you know your drinks, it's okay. Now, while we're looking at Few is really a really interesting distillery. It's called Few because it's I believe it was the first or one of the few distilleries to open up in the home of prohibition in Chicago, Illinois, in a town called Evanston. Now, Evanston is the home of prohibition, and I guess the guys who opened Few were like, hey, come on, let's just take it back. Let's see if we can produce bourbon outside of Kentucky and produce it in a place that has some sort of political relevance. And prohibition doesn't exist anymore, so let's do it there. It was some sort of kind of I don't think it was like a disrespectful kind of approach, but to the historical relevance, but more like a rebellious one, and I really like that. So they've got a really good story, and they're always doing something interesting with their labels, and most of their labels contain, I believe, illustrations from the World Expo, which is really interesting. This one, however, is even more interesting as far as a release goes, because Few are renowned for releasing small batch releases or having creations that they've come together and gone, oh, we're going to do this, and they produce something very special in small quantities, hence why a lot of their releases end up becoming collector's editions, because once they're gone, they're gone. And what makes this one special? Well, let's give you a quick look first. You probably would have read this in the title. This is Few Bourbon, as we all know, but it's cut with cold brew coffee. Yes, your ears do not deceive you. This is 46.5% ABV, making this 93% proof, and when it comes out of the cask initially, it's obviously far stronger than that. And what they've done is they've done what it says on the label. They've taken cold brew coffee, which, if you know the process of extracting cold brew coffee, it can be very, very time consuming, because it can either be done by just pouring water into coffee, sticking it into an environment and letting that coffee kind of infuse into the water, or allowing water to slowly drip at a rate that you set through your chosen beans and a filter and all that sort of wonderful stuff to produce a extraction. Now, what they've done is basically take that cold drip coffee, and to bring the strength down to 46.5% or 93% proof, they've mixed coffee into that alcohol to dilute it, to bring it down to that strength. Now, if you're not familiar with the idea of dilution of alcohol, basically that's how it works. Usually alcohol, whiskey or whatever, is diluted with water, so when it comes out of the cask, it is then brought down to a certain percentage, usually 40%, but in this case it's 46.5. It's going to be a little bit of a cracker when you first try it, but it's got this coffee edge. As you can see, or you probably noticed, we've been enjoying this a little bit. Myself and my brother-in-law have, and my dad. We've had a couple of goes of this, so I'm very familiar with this. I'm trying not to finish it because it's literally the last one I particularly have available in my collection, but obviously we have them available on Moazo, and they are limited. I don't know if at the time of publishing if they're even available anymore, but it's really good to try out. If you can get hold of a bottle, if you can get hold of it from me, fine. If you can find it somewhere else, go for it. I can tell you right off, it's a great talking point. It's a great way of enjoying something new. And if you are not familiar with bourbon, it's I would say, well, I was going to say give it a go, but I would say if you're not familiar with bourbon, or you have had bourbon in the past and you found it too strong, too whatever, I hope that this one will provide you with a bit more accessibility because of the nature of it. Also, I'm going to show you some tips and tricks, basically watering it down. That is the tip and trick on enjoying bourbon a little bit more. So let's do this. I'm going to pour myself a dram. Great sound as usual. Smells great. It doesn't really smell of coffee, but it does smell very warm, woody and spicy, so to speak. Now, here we go. This is my usual glass. You know this. You're familiar with this glass by now. There we go. Let's put that there. Yes, and before I get started with the tasting, I have read most of these books here, but the great ideas. It's a great set. It's a great collection. Bought it about 15 years ago. Here we go. Great color. Look at that. The color we had last week on the Black Pits. You remember I thought it was going to be a lot more amber, but it turned out to be a lot more paler. This is definitely a beautiful color. I love this color. Look at it. There's just something so nice about it. It's appealing. It's like that I forget what it was called now, but that, from Jurassic Park with the mosquito stuck in it. That bit of tree sap. It's really, really beautiful color. Golden brown. It's toasted. It's lovely. Take a look at that. Let's see if we can get that camera to focus. It looks really, really nice. Look at that. Now, on the nose, it's definitely harsh. It's got a good punch to it, but it's not overwhelming. You do get that kind of alcoholic edge at first, but then later, oh man, the coffee is there. The coffee is there, but it's more like the sweetness of coffee. That sweet, warm spiciness of coffee. Now, I don't know which coffee they used to cut this with. As you know, each coffee or the way it's roasted or the origin of the beans all have their own characteristics. So I'm not familiar with what they've done, but this, if you can get past the alcoholic note, you can smell the coffee. But at the same time, it's quite woody, fruity almost, with a, what's the word? Not golden treacle. You get treacle, but you get the dark treacle, molasses. It's definitely got that sort of thick richness to it. Well, let's give it a go. As expected, it does pack a bit of alcoholic alcoholic. It's not the right word, but it does pack that alcohol edge at first. That kind of, when you have alcohol and you see, you're like, whew, and it kind of makes you warm and it makes your tongue tingle. So all the flavors are kind of, you haven't experienced all the flavors in the first sip. You're kind of going to experience them in subsequent sips. But that first initial sip, it's warming, it's spicy, kind of makes your mouth water. You don't really get that coffeeness immediately, but the more you breathe and take it in, and that's just the first sip, there is a coffee sweetness in there. And if you are a coffee fan, you will find it, that's for sure. Yeah, second sip, a lot more manageable. And I would definitely say, as far as spices go, this is kind of like cinnamon. It's a very strong cinnamon edge, along with a kind of like sweety molasses. I don't know if molasses is the right word, but there is this dark treacle in there, and it's not overwhelming. They go well together. It's almost like a cheeky little pudding. Like you know, it's not overwhelming. It's not overbearing. It's just tasty, and I think that comes from the coffee notes. I think that coffee mixing with the nature of bourbon, so the characteristics of bourbon, from the wood, from the char, all of that is giving you a really nice complementary kind of flavor profile. So you've got earth notes, wood char notes, spicy notes, treacly flavors with a kind of like a hint of fruit. I'm not sure what fruit that could be, but there's definitely something there. Let's see if there's any sort of indication on the back. I can't think of the name, but it could be kind of like a stone fruit. I don't know. I mean, it's definitely bold. There's like, hey, there's some boldness. Yes, it's definitely bold. It has got that initial hit. While I'm talking, I'm feeling the sweetness of it still kind of bouncing around. It's not overbearing. It's very, very sippable, but I would say slow sippable. Compared to the black pits that we had last week, where that was just super sweet, super sippable. It basically didn't even need water, whereas this, I believe, because it has that little spicy afterburn, it would benefit from water. So let's add some. So like I was saying, this is kind of like the major tip that I would use for any alcohol that you come across in a bar, or a friend serves it to you, whatever. If in your first 2 to 3 sips you aren't enjoying it, add water. Or if you don't enjoy it with water but you're finding it too harsh, add a block of ice, because that will kind of dilute slowly and release those flavors in layers. But let's do this, and I'm always going to exaggerate this. There we go. And as always, what this does is it releases the oils. I'm not sure if you can see that. It releases the oils, and you'll get a different profile come through. So that has become spicy. Whoa. So it's not harsh, but it's spicy. Definitely cinnamon. Maybe there's a hint of clove in there as well. Now, I don't know if these flavors or these notes are intended. And I don't know if you will experience the same profile. You may completely disagree with me. However, what tends to happen is that, I've said this before, if you are not familiar with a clove, for example, just for example, if you're not familiar with a clove, you are not going to say that there's clove or cinnamon. You're just not, it's just not going to happen, right? Because you've never had it before. So what will happen is that you'll find your closest association. So for me, I think it's cinnamony, it's clovey, it's got that kind of spicy profile. There could even be a hint of cardamom in there, but that's just me, and you might think it's completely different, but I like it. Geez, that alcohol sharpness has completely been destroyed. Obviously I added in theory a lot of water. There are times when you can just add a drop, literally a drop of water. Just put your finger in some water and drop it, and for some drinkers that's more than enough. Well, if you want to take the edge off and enjoy the flavor profile, adding a little bit of water, a little extra water, it's good for the experience. And I like this already. This is compared to the experience again with Black Pits, where when I added water and I didn't particularly enjoy it. I just thought it went way too far into the sweet zone. This, however, has brought that kind of alcohol edge down, that spirit feeling down, and what is usually associated with bourbon, that kind of harshness. If you have had bourbon before, or you've had experienced it and you've gone, woo, that's a bit out there, it's brought that down. At the same time, it's taken up the spicy sweetness. There could even be a cheeky bit of apricot in here. I think that's what I've been looking for, a plummy apricot kind of thing. I would say more on the apricot side, and that has come out really nice. I like this, I enjoy it. Like I said, this is part of my own collection and I highly recommend it. It is a limited batch. It does come into the UK in dribs and drabs, and if you can get hold of one, I highly recommend it. Either put one into your collection, because I just think it'll probably go up in value, like some of these small batch whiskies do, and get one for yourself to enjoy, or give it to a loved one. I mean, who's gonna say no to a bottle of cold cut bourbon, cold cut coffee bourbon? No one, I'm sure. Anyway, that's a good one. That's a good salute to American bourbon. I like that very much. I hope you enjoy it. If you've experienced this, please let me know. Comments and suggestions below. As always, I try my best to get back to all of them, and wherever you are, I hope you're safe, you're sound, you're enjoying what you're doing, you're enjoying a drink with me or with a loved one, and I'll see you on Friday. Bye bye.